So in this video, I'm going over option 2, which is going to be a bit more detailed. If you're interested in option 1, you can check out the video that's going to be linked in the description box below. So for option 2, that's if you want to take control of your finances by understanding your spending habits, pay down debt, and strategically save to reduce financial stress. So how you're going to start with option 2 is that you're going to fill out all the tabs from left to right, starting with important dates. So this is the first tab here. How I kind of set up the tabs is first I like to plan for the year by putting down all the important dates, especially those that might incur costs. So typically what I like to do here is that I like to include statutory holidays because sometimes I like to plan like a weekend getaway and that costs money. I like to include birthdays. I even include my pet's annual vet appointment because that's quite costly and I just want to make sure that's budgeted in. I'll even include potential vacations as well. So I'm just going to update that in real time to show you how that looks like. So for example, New Year. Maybe I like to go out for New Year's or even New Year's Eve, but for the sake of this exercise, I'm just going to put in New Year. Maybe my Uber is going to cost $100 there and back. Okay, family day. Typically, I like to go out to eat, so $80. And you know what? I'm going to put my pet's annual vet appointment. So pet annual vet appointment, and that's typically $350. Whoops, I made a mistake there. There you go. And so you're gonna just update accordingly. Around my birthday, I like to take a vacation, maybe to Mexico. So that's gonna be like $500, $1,500. And then for birthdays, I tend to have a lot of birthdays in November. So let's say birthday 1. Of course, you can use your friend's name or your family member's name or your significant other's name. Birthday 2. My gifts are usually around $80. So $80. And I know I'm saying usually, but I'm just being hypothetical here. One of the events that I like to budget for is the Black Friday sale. And I'd like to kind of like shop in advance for that. So anything that I use kind of like quite often throughout the year, try to buy most of it on Black Friday. So let's budget $500 for that. Okay, so it looks like for the year I'm anticipating to spend about $2,500 on, I would say, like non-essential stuff. So after you filled out the important dates tab, what you can do is that you can transfer all of this information to the relevant budget plan. So for example, for the budget plans for January, you're going to include these details in there. And another cool thing about this important dates tab is that I've also included a chart here just to kind of give you a visual of where your money is going and which month you can expect to be spending a bit more. So next here is the debt tab. Now here I want to include assets like your mortgage or car, so I'm more so referring to bad debt. So if you have any debt you need to pay down, please, please, please include them here. This is probably one of the most important segments of this budget plan or workbook because bad debt incurs a lot of interest if not managed properly. Once you fill this out, make sure to transfer all the information to the relevant budget plans. So I'm just going to show you how this works. So up top here, there's debt 1, debt 2, debt 3. So you can, of course, rename these. So let's just say Visa, I have like Visa debt. I have a line of credit or lock. So let's just work with the two debts at the moment. So let's just say the current balance for the Visa is $500. Actually, let's go a bit more extreme. So 2,000. Let's just say it's 2,000. Okay, the interest rate on that on average is 20%, I believe. Okay, and this right here, additional set monthly fees. So there aren't additional set fees that I have to pay on the credit card. Now, if you are paying insurance on it, I believe the amount is based on the balance and it's not really a set amount. So I wouldn't include it here. I would just make a bigger payment. So that's how it's going to look like. Now you'll notice here that, got to make an edit here. Now you'll notice here that I've organized it by months and it's not by bi-weekly paychecks. So let's just say for the month of January, for both of my pay in total, I want to pay down $300. And then I want to do that every single month. And you'll notice that the blue fields will update accordingly. Now, how I like to approach this is that I'll put in an amount for every single month, an amount that's realistic for me to work with. However, once you get paid and work with the budget plans, if there are any kind of updates to the payment that you're making, make sure to go back to this debt tab and then update it. So for example, let's say like after I get paid because I was over budget, I couldn't pay $300 to my Visa, I'm going to have to update it accordingly. Okay, now for the line of credit, let's just say it is $15,000. If you actually don't know how much interest you're paying on any of your debt, please make sure you call in. Or I believe it's normally in your statement. But again, if you don't know, and you should know, make sure you call in, speak to a representative so you can kind of get that really important information. So for the line of credit, let's just say it's 10%. Okay, for the monthly fees, depending on the line of credit, sometimes there are set monthly fees just to kind of keep it active. So let's just say it's $25. Perfect. And let's say for this one, I want to make a $250 payment every single month. And again, you'll transfer this into your budget plan. And if you don't, and if the number does change after you get paid, that sort of stuff, make sure you come back to this debt tab and update the amount accordingly. But this is a pretty neat page because it kind of shows you how far along are you and when you're going to be eventually paying this off. So let's go back to the Visa. Let's just say I make $300. I'll payment every single month for my Visa. Oh, I'm so silly. I just realized for this one, it's only $2,000. So technically, by July, I would have almost paid off my Visa card. Now, let's see here for the line of credit. Neat. So if I'm making a payment of $250 every month for my line of credit, between January until the end of the year, so 12 months, I would have paid down just about $3,000. That actually doesn't sound like too much, so maybe you'd want to increase that amount. But again, I'm just showing this to you as part of this exercise to kind of give you like a visual. Now for the next tab, that's going to be the savings calculator tab. You can definitely skip this if your focus is paying down debt. However, if you are paying down secured debt, so like a loan, and you don't really have withdrawal access to that loan, I recommend to save for an emergency fund at least to ensure that you have easy access to cash when you need it most. And if you're unsure whether you should be allocating more money to your debt or what kind of savings plan you should have and those sort of details, then I highly recommend that you see and speak to a financial advisor so they can kind of work on the best approach for your finances. So what I like about having savings is that it can be used for when you need to pull out more funds so that you don't dip into borrowing more credit, such as for vacations and like that Black Friday sale that I planned earlier at the beginning. Savings should not always be dipped into, but used strategically to avoid paying extra interest and having an emergency fund. So the savings calculator looks like this, and this is how I've organized it. So let's just say I want to save to put a down payment on a house. So let's just say it's condo down payment. So that's what I'm going to label it as. My starting balance 0. Let's say I want to start fresh. So my savings goal is let's just say it's $50,000. Okay. How many months do I think it'll take for me to reach this goal? So let's just say I'm looking about 2 years, so 24 months. Okay, so if I want to save $50,000 in 24 months, every single month I need to save $2,000. So after you get this number, you're going to transfer this into your budget plan for every single month. So after you get this amount, you're going to be putting it into your budget plan. Now, if it doesn't fit in your budget plan, so let's say you work through your budget plan and you're actually over budget, you might have to adjust this number or adjust other things within your budget. But this can be a pretty hefty amount, so maybe you just have to be a bit more realistic and stretch out the number of months that you like to reach this goal. So let's just say 36 months instead. So about $1,300 or about $1,400 a month between two paychecks. If you're getting paid bi-weekly, that's going to be $700 each each paycheck. So that's it for the savings calculator tab. And next, you're going to be completing all of the monthly budget templates. So here is the personal budget plan template, and you'll know that because the title doesn't say sample on it. So I do mention in the comprehensive guide that there are two ways to use this budget template, or two ways to approach it. And first, you have to identify kind of what's your goal. And in this video in particular, I'm just going over option one. If you do select option two, I'll link the video in the description box below. Now for option one, that's if you want to simply understand where your paycheck is going and just get a clear idea of what your budget should look like. So option one is a bit more simple. And if you select option one, you're just going to go straight to your budget templates and fill them all out. And when I mentioned the budget template, that's sort of like the main template, and that's the one with all the months. So you'll see Jan 1, Jan 2, Feb 1, Feb 2. And if you press on the three dots here, that's going to bring you to the other months for the rest of the year. And the reason why there are two templates for each month is because most people get paid bi-weekly. So that means that month 1 and month 2, so Jan 1 and Jan 2, just simply means pay cycle 1 and pay cycle 2. Now, if you do get paid monthly, what you can do is that you can delete the other month by just right-clicking and pressing delete. Now, I'm not going to do that for this video, but if you get paid only once a month, you can do that for yourself. So there are 4 steps to working with these budgeting templates. Now, step 1, before you even get paid, what you're going to do is that you're going to fill out the initial slash actual budget column. So this entire column here, so for all the sections, that's what you're going to fill out, including the description, which is located onto the left side. Now, as you make the updates here, this field up top, so this first blue field, is going to automatically update it and show you if you're under or over budget. If you're under budget, that means that you have funds to kind of allocate to your expense, savings, or debt. And if you're over budget, that means that you have to decrease either your expense, savings, or debt. And what I've done in these fields is that if you're over budget, it's going to turn red. And if you're under budget, it's going to turn green. Now I'm just going to show you how that looks like by updating this in real time. So for section 1, you're going to input your income or any additional credits that you are expecting to receive in this pay cycle. So for example, pay 1, let's say I get paid $3,000. Let's say for pay 2, if I have like a part-time job, I'm expecting $250. Now, if you're not working a salary job and per paycheck, it's a little bit different. The number that I recommend putting on here is the lowest amount that is the most consistent. So for example, if you're getting paid anywhere between $300 to $800, I'd recommend putting down the number $300 because it's always going to be a lot easier to under budget than over budget. Let's just say like you put down $800, but in actuality you got about like $400. Now you have like a $400 gap that you're going to be over budgeted for, and it's always going to be a lot harder to manage your budget plan when you're over budget. And when it comes to credits, that could be like any kind of government incentives, bonuses, or even like refunds that you're expecting. So I'm just going to put down, for the sake of this exercise, maybe I'm receiving a refund from a clothing store. Perfect. Okay. And here I'm just going to check the field up top here. So it's showing that I am under budget by $33.55, of course, because I haven't allocated it to any of my expenses, savings, or debt. Now, this second field here, we're going to ignore that until later on. So just focusing on the first field. Okay, so for section 2, sinking fund. So that's going to be like essentials and recurring subscriptions. Now, subscriptions technically aren't considered essentials, but the reason why I kind of put it here is because with subscriptions, they're pre-authorized payments. And if you miss it, typically you get charged an NSF fee, which in Canada it's typically around $50. So that's a lot of money, and an expense that you should prioritize not missing. Now, if you do find out that this subscription isn't really an essential, and you don't really use it, then I recommend just canceling it. Now you'll notice that for every template, I kind of put in an account buffer. Now I think adding in an account buffer amount is important because it's going to help to account for unexpected expenses that might come up, sometimes like not within your control. And having this in here would really help to kind of reduce that financial stress if it does come up. So for account buffer, let's say I'm going to put in $100. Now, of course, understand that not everybody has the privilege to have enough room to kind of work with the account buffer. But if you can, again, I recommend that you put this in here. So essentials, that would include, so for example, for my first pay cycle, let's assume that I have my mortgage coming out. So that's going to be, let's say, $2,500. My phone bill, let's say that's $60. My groceries. Now, this is going to be different than dining out. Dining out, I would say, is a privilege. But aside from dining out, of course, as a human being, there are foods that you need to eat in order to survive. So that's why I put it in the essentials section here. So 150, my bus pass, let's say for this pay cycle or pay period, $60. Section 3 is debt. So if you have any debt payments, I recommend you putting it in here. So for the sake of this exercise, I'm going to put it in a Visa. Let's just say I'm going to make a $500 payment. For my savings account, tax-free savings account, let's say I want to put in $250. Now, if you're unsure whether you should prioritize putting more into your debt or into your savings funds, I highly recommend that you see a financial advisor so they can kind of work on an approach that is best suitable for your financial needs. Now, I would say typically it's always good to have an emergency fund so that you have cash at hand in case something comes up that you need to kind of withdraw from. Now, aside from that, I think it's important to pay down your debt, especially the ones that have high interest rates, just to kind of manage the interest that you're paying on it. Okay, now for section 5, that's kind of like other and like non-essential items. So, for example, dining out, and then I kind of put like a miscellaneous section here that would include like, items such as self-care and that sort of stuff. So let's say I'm going to spend 150 for this pay period, and miscellaneous, maybe $50. Maybe I need to grab some like feminine hygiene products. And that's it. So I've completed the initial / actual budget column. Now, how do I know if I'm actually over or under budget? I'm gonna check that first field. So, like I mentioned before, because this is in red and it's in a negative amount, so that means that I'm over budget by $465. So I need to reduce the amount of some of these expenses, savings, or debt allocations that I've made. Now, if I'm looking at this, I would like to prioritize paying down debt because you're paying normally interest on it. So I'm going to reduce maybe my savings and only put $50. And then maybe I'm going to reduce the dining out. So let's check back here again. So $215. So I'm still over budget by $215. So where can I pull that from? Maybe I can be a little bit more conservative when it comes to my groceries. So another 100. So sorry, I'm reducing it from 150 to $100. Now I do want to save a little bit of money here. So because I'm still over by $165, maybe I don't put anything into my savings account. And when I say that, maybe I already have an emergency fund, so I'm not really prioritizing additional savings because I have that emergency fund. Now, the thing about me is that I know that I do like to go out to eat, so me reducing the dining out amount might not be realistic. So I might have to reduce my debt payment. So let's go $300. Now I'm over budget by $85. So maybe I can go 385. So now it's showing for 0, which is good. That means that I've allocated all my funds to my expenses, debt, or savings, and that there's technically nothing in my checking account. So what we just did was for step 1, that's before you get paid. Now for step 2, once you do get paid, you're going to go back to the initial / actual budget column and update your income and credits. Now, if you get paid salary, then there might not be any kind of movement in this step. But if, again, there are any kind of updates to your income or any kind of additional credits, this is a time for you to update it. That's in step 2. So for the sake of this exercise, let's just say I've gotten my pay 1 is the same. My pay 2, maybe I actually got paid less. So I received $200 instead. And then for my refund, let's just say that didn't take place. Perfect. Okay, so once I've updated that, I'm going to check that first field up top, and it's showing that now after I've got paid, I'm actually over budget by $155. So what that means, just like in step 1, is that I'm going to have to update my budget plan again and deduct from my expenses, my savings, or my debt payment. So 155, I'm going to have to reduce that. So maybe for my dining out, I will have to reconsider and be more conservative. So I'm going to spend only $75. But of course, I'm still over budget by $130. So maybe I'll update my debt payment. So let's see, 225. So from 385 to 225. So now I'm under budget by $30. Now I don't really want anything sitting in my checking account. So let's see, so 255. Perfect, so I've allocated everything. Now on to step 3. So between this pay period, so for example Jan 1, and your next pay period, so Jan 2, you can start updating the spent columns. So the spent columns shown here. So that's what you're going to start updating. Now that might not be applicable to most categories. And this is an important section because this is going to show you your actual budgeting habits versus what you had planned. Now, if the spent amount is the same as the initial / actual budget column, you're simply going to transfer over the same number again because you're still because this is still actual spending. So for example, before I got paid, I budgeted my mortgage to be $2,500, but mortgage payments tend to stay the same. So in terms of how much I've actually spent on my mortgage, it's going to be the same. Now for the account buffer, typically it stays the same. So once I get paid, the amount doesn't really vary unless I'm trying to make an update on that. Now for the phone bill, every month for me is the exact same. Now for groceries and the bus pass, that's going to be something that I have to update on an ongoing basis. Now what you can do to kind of help you calculate that is that you can use the calculators located to the right of the template. So these calculators are going to help you calculate the categories that you have to update on an ongoing basis. So I'm just going to show you how that works. And it looks like in this template, I've already labeled the calculator so I know what it's kind of referring to. So groceries, and for this one, I'm going to put bus pass. So for example, let's just say January 3rd, I went to Costco and I spent $150. Oh, actually, no, I should not be spending $150 because my budget's only $100. So $50, sorry, $50. And then January 5th, I went to No Frills and I spent like $5 on bread. And then January 7th, I went to Costco again, and then I spent $30. So it ended up being $85, and I'm going to add in $85 here. And of course, because it's one of the categories that I have to update as I go, I'll update this number as the days go by. Now for the bus pass, let's say I go for this week, I'm going into the office 5 times a week. So one trip there and back is 660, and then 5 days in a week. So January 1, so 5 days. Okay, so that comes up to $33. I'm gonna bring this over. And again, everybody's expenses are going to be a little bit different. I'm just simply showing you mine, and as you can tell, it's quite flexible how you can kind of use this. And then, of course, you're going to keep updating this accordingly between this pay and the next pay period. So here for the Visa amount, once I get paid, I typically just do one payment. So it's not something that I have to update on an ongoing basis. So that stays the same. Now for the dining out and the miscellaneous stuff, that's something that I do have to update on an ongoing basis. So for example, let's just say Jan 6. Whoops. So Jan 6. I go to a restaurant and I spend $50. Jan 10, I go to another restaurant and I spend $45, right? So that actually ends up being $95. I'm going to put that in there. And then in terms of miscellaneous, let's say I grabbed like a face cleanser. Ended up being like $25, and that's sort of like the only miscellaneous item that I spent for this pay period. So what was that? $25. Okay, perfect. So what we're going to do is that you're going to keep updating until your next pay. But before you move on to the next budget template, you're going to check the spent field up top here. So once you've made all of the updates of how much you've spent during that during this pay period, you're going to check here to see if you're under or over budget. If you're under budget, that is a good sign. If you're over budget, that means that you spent over your planned budget. So this looks pretty good. Now, after you've worked through your first budget plan, for step 4, what you're going to do is that you're going to update all of these templates, the skeleton of it. And what I mean by that is that you're prepping all of the templates so you don't have to retype all of the basics every single time. So for example, if you have an idea of how much you get paid consistently, you're going to include all the information for each of the budget plan. So for example, I know that, or I have an idea that my my full-time job and my part-time job kind of pays like the same amount every single time. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to highlight this, press Control C at the same time on my keyboard, and I'm going to paste it into my income like that. And I'm going to do that for all of the templates. Okay. And I'm just going to refer back to the first budget template because it's already gone through like a round. So you're going to do the same thing for section 2. Now keep in mind that the for your mortgage and for your rent and as well as your phone bill and like things like that, that only happens once a month. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to copy and paste this all, but I'm going to do this for the first budget plan of the month because I only pay these. And then I'm going to refer back to the first budget template. So now for the, let's see here. Now for the account buffer, I would like to do that every single month. So I just want to make sure that's included every single month. And of course, I'm just doing this for the first few months, just so that you can kind of see how this looks like. Now for the groceries and bus pass, that's going to be every single pay period that I'm allocating money to. So there you go. Okay, and like I said, for step 4, that's what you're going to be doing. You're going to kind of use the first budget template plan kind of like as a guidance, and then you're going to be copy and pasting it and updating all of the other budget templates. And then notice that eventually there's going to be a lot of repetition, but of course doing it this way is just going to prep you for success. And before I wrap up this video, I do want to share one tip. If you do have any pre-authorized payments coming out of your checking account, for those particular expenses, I normally like to highlight it. So for example, let's just say my phone bill comes out of my checking account. This is normally I kind of do it this way to kind of remind myself that I need to make sure that that amount stays in my account. Now, I want to mention that for people who don't have overdraft protection on their checking account, and so if you're expecting a pre-authorized amount coming out of your checking account and you've budgeted for it, but you've forgotten that the amount's supposed to come out and it bounces, well, guess what? You're going to end up paying for that fee, that non-sufficient fund fee. And of course, for the sake of you being proactive and budgeting, you definitely don't want to be paying a fee that you don't need to. Actually, sorry, just one more thing in case you're not going over the comprehensive guide in detail. So once you've completed your budget plans and you've gone through a couple of pay cycles, and then you notice a few things such as you're spending more than you earn, or you're spending too much money on non-essential items, or you're actually paying a lot of interest and or fees when it comes to your debt. Well, don't worry because you can adjust your budget because now you have a comprehensive view of how your budget plan looks like. However, if you find that sticking to your budget plan is challenging, I recommend checking out page 7 of the comprehensive guide because that's where you can find additional insights and tips that's going to help you to really kind of manage that aspect. But if your budget is perfect, then just keep doing what you're doing. Thanks again so much for your time and happy budgeting, planning, and saving.